Create and Thrive Podcast, Episode 9. Camilla Prada on how to run a successful crafty Kickstarter.
Yeah, one of the things that people, I think, trip on a little bit is when they think, oh, I'm going to do this crowdfunding platform. Kickstarter has a lot of people on there that are going to see my campaign, and that's not necessarily true. You have to promote it.
I'm Jess Van Den, and this is the Create and Thrive Podcast. A former school teacher, I turned my handmade hobby into a thriving business, and I also teach other creatives how to do the same. My goal is to help you learn how to turn your creative hobby into a thriving, profitable business. So let's get learning. Hey Thrivers, Jess here, welcome to the show. So today we have an interview with my friend Camilla Prada. You may have seen her around before on the Create and Thrive blog. We actually interviewed her for a success story feature, somewhere about a year ago now, I think. And I've chatted to her on and off since then. And a little while ago, I saw pop up on her Instagram, because I follow her on Instagram, a post about the fact that she was running a Kickstarter campaign, which I thought was really awesome. And I looked into it a little bit more, and I emailed her straight away and said, would you like to come on the show and talk about this? Because I think it's something our listeners would find really useful, and I think it's a really cool idea, what you're doing. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to talk a little bit about Camilla's background. She's going to share her story, how she went from being an artist to being a commercial designer to moving back to working for herself and growing her own business, and how all of those stages have changed her and her perspective on her work. And she's also going to go in depth and talk about her Kickstarter and why she's doing it, how she's done it, some advice if you think you would like to try it. And it's by the time you listen to this, unfortunately the Kickstarter will have just finished, but you can check it out. Head over to the show notes for this episode, and there'll be a link there where you can go have a look at exactly what she did with her Kickstarter and exactly how successful it has been. It's been amazingly successful. So let's dive in and we'll get started. And I'm here today with Camilla Prada. Welcome to the call, Camilla.
Hello.
It's great to have you with us.
Thank you. It's nice to be here.
As I was saying just before we started recording, it's getting right near the end of your Kickstarter, which is what we're going to be talking about today, which is very exciting. So thank you for taking the time to chat to me today. Guys, as you're listening to this, it would have just finished, unfortunately. We tried to get it done before it finished, but maybe there'll be another one. We'll see. So to get started, can you just give the listeners a little bit of your background, so how you came to be doing what you're doing?
Okay, well, it's a long story. I'll try to condense it.
Oh, that's okay.
That's always a bit of a hard question sometimes. But well, I started off, I guess, as an artist or sculptor or craft person, you could say, in university, and I was always interested in ceramics, but I was doing a more figurative sculpting at the time, and I had the idea to do design because I knew that I wanted to do things that people would use, and it seemed like a more probable career. So I started doing craft ceramics in Toronto, Canada. I had a small studio with a friend, and I was doing the whole craft fair circuit. And I didn't have any business skills back then. I feel like I'm just learning now. That was like 10 years ago. So I didn't really make any money. I looked around. I remember looking around one particular craft fair I was at, and it seemed that nobody was actually making a living from it, except for these two girls that had a booth, and it was called Barbie's Basement Jewelry, and it was like sort of glass domes, and they would put little pictures underneath them and make pendants. It was really cheap, really affordable for the customer to buy, and they had like a long queue. And I was like, you know what? I'm I think maybe I should become a designer because I don't think I'm going to be able to make it.
Yeah.
So I was really...
Was that a hard decision to come to?
No, because I always liked design.
Yes.
I always really enjoyed design. I would go into the library or into the Barnes and Noble loungy, massive type bookstores, and I would always be picking up the British design books. They were always from the UK or
sorry, I'm laughing because that's where Camilla has ended up. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And there was one in like Craft Magazine, the British Craft Magazine. It's super glossy and beautiful, filled with amazing talent. And the Canadian Craft Magazine was like photocopies at the time.
Yeah.
So I was like, maybe I should go there and I should be a designer and maybe I can, get a job for a few years and then start doing my own thing with a bit more knowledge under my belt. So I came to the UK. I found a master's in ceramic design, which is pretty random. It's one of the few courses that I think it's the only one actually that gears you towards being more of a designer for industry instead of an artist or an independent maker. But instead of getting a job somewhere, there weren't really very many jobs at all, and not the type of jobs that I would like. I didn't know that before starting the course, but I loved the course, and I learned so many things, and I fell in love with industrial ceramics, which is kind of, the overlap between craft and design and product design is very overlappy in that area, and I really liked it. So I kind of stumbled upon an opportunity after graduating, and I started. Well, I didn't stumble upon it. I actively seeked it out. We would go to the large. We would go to as a class, the whole class. We went to a fair, a big consumer goods fair in Frankfurt called Ambiente. And what we would do with our little portfolios we would shop our design skills around and see if any firms wanted to hire us either freelance or full-time. And it's like the worst time to ask these companies that because they're trying to sell. They don't want to waste time talking to students. Yep. We didn't know that. But
surely your professors do that.
Well, they did, but I think they just, I don't know why they, nobody ever mentioned that could be an issue. I kind of figured that out by the way I was treated on the stands.
Yep.
And I never go to the
trial by fire.
Maybe that's what it was. But I ended up being quite lucky because I went to like the best company I thought to work for, which was Rosenthal. And I knew the head of design's name because my instructor told me. And he actually came out to see me, which was amazing. And he looked through my portfolio for like a few seconds, very nonchalantly. He just whipped through the pages and he said, "Oh, it's nice, it's nice." And I went into this whole spiel about how I wanted to design tabletop characters, and it's the character first and the function second, and it's all about doing these things. And I was really inspired by street art and graffiti at the time and all that stuff. And a few weeks later, they had flown me to Selden, Germany, to work on a collection with them.
Wow.
And that's where this sort of cute character aesthetic all started, from that idea that I had. That I had already started to do on my own, but then I thought, well, maybe the only way to get out there is to design for a company. And through many, 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 many iterations, I ended up doing it back. I could tell you that story as well, but I don't want to ramble on. I ended up getting the design rights back, and now I'm doing it myself. And there's many reasons for that, which might be interesting.
Yeah, well, I mean, so the characters that you do now, which is kind of what you're known for, you originally designed them with the company you worked for, and then
no, I designed them before that.
Oh, okay. So you already had
university
designed them and had that idea, and then you took that with you to the company.
Yes.
And what was that like working with a big company?
It was pretty cool because before that, it was a complete mystery to me. How would I work as a freelancer? on these products that are so tactile. I don't even know how to design in a 3D rendering program. I don't do that. Everything that I do is via hand forming. When I design something, I sketch it, and I have to make it with my hands to create a prototype. I was like, wow, how am I going to work with the company? I don't do computer rendering. And what I ended up doing was, I didn't know anything about how royalties worked or anything about how many times we would communicate to finalize the design. So I learned all of those things, and I ended up hand forming models in plaster on a lathe. Mm-hmm. I did this at the university, and then I would actually send them a really heavy box of prototypes in plaster, and then they would make them into ceramics. Wow. And we would iterate back and forth. They would actually send them back to me, and I would make changes. Wow. Yeah. And then I would go there like once or twice a year to actually work with them on more finer details, and then they would release the collection.
Wow. So just for anyone listening who's interested in working freelance with a company, I think this is really interesting to hear about, because you know, if, like you said, if you don't do it, how are you going to know how it all works? So So you were working for them as a freelancer. Mm-hmm. So how did that work with the royalties and all that sort of jazz?
Well, that was something I didn't know anything about either, and it's still something that I know a little bit about now, but I guess I only know about my particular situation. I got an advance on the royalty, and then a very small percentage on units that would sell.
Right.
So that's how it worked.
So it's a little bit like the publishing industry, where you get an advance up front and then a cut of everything sold. That's really interesting. Mm-hmm. So what made you decide to step back from that and try to go it alone again?
Well, I wanted that after a while, and let's see if I can sort of put this into sort of like a linear story. The ceramics industry, I mean, it's always been sort of, not always, but maybe in the last 10 or 20 years or more than that, it's suffered kind of like a big decline. And a lot of these big companies, Rosenthal's a pretty big company, they're kind of owned by other big companies. Yeah. So there was like a big merger happening. Another company bought Rosenthal, because I live in the UK now, and Rosenthal, Wedgwood, another very famous historical ceramics brand, they were all owned by the same company, but then they kind of broke apart. And in that, the new people overseeing everything were like, we're going to cut all the sublines. We're going to cut all little sublines. There's too many units, too many different sublines going on. So they cut mine. Right. And I was quite happy about it, to be honest, because this is one of the things that, I mean, I wouldn't do, maybe I would do it again, and I'm not saying nobody should do it, but I think it's very difficult to, I mean, I didn't make a living as a freelancer at all, and there were many, many problems with, well, it's like having your own business, of course, and oftentimes you have to sort of chase payments. Oftentimes you don't get paid. I'm not saying Rosenthal did that, but that happened to me with other people. It's I think it works if you have a hit, or you have many, many different accounts and companies that you design for, and over time you just accumulate this big portfolio. I was on a tiny royalty and it didn't work. It wasn't working for me, and I ended up feeling quite disillusioned. So I thought that the way, and there were other things as well in terms of the way that the company, and this is very common, this is the common tension between artists and companies. They wanted to sort of present my designs in a certain way, and they wanted me to make changes to things that I thought were just not the way that I wanted them to be. So I was like, okay, let's see if I can do it by myself and have more control over everything.
That sounds good to me.
Yeah.
It sounds like a whole lot of extra work for maybe not worth it, unless, like you said, you have enough accounts and you can balance it all. Like with any freelance job, I guess it can be a bit hit and miss. Okay, so how long ago do you say would that have been that you kind of stepped back out on your own again?
This about 2.5 years ago.
Okay, awesome. And I mean, from the outside, I mean, I think we first talked about, a year or a little bit more ago when I had you on the blog for one of our success story features, and you're already doing well then. So it seems that, all that background work that you'd been doing over all the years had taught you a lot about ceramics, but also about perhaps the business side of things. Would that be accurate?
Yes, definitely everything I've done up until now has informed me so much about what my strengths are in this world of being a designer maker or trying to make your tangible product into something viable that you can actually make a living from. So I've tried. I feel like I've done it all. I've been sort of an artist, and then I've done freelance design, and now I'm in the role of a businesswoman building a brand. So they're all really hard, but it's cool. It's cool to learn this stuff.
Yeah, definitely. So let's go to the crux of what we want to talk about today. You are currently, and it's about to finish, running a Kickstarter. Now, can you tell us what made you decide to run a Kickstarter campaign?
Well, I've been a fan of Kickstarter for a really long time. I kind of follow, I'm not a techie person who trolls Kickstarter looking for the latest invention, but I did hear about it a long time ago it was probably Tim Ferriss or one of those other people that I follow on the internet that are sort of business gurus, if you will. Yeah. And I just thought it was such a great idea, and there are many reasons I was attracted to it. I like the way that Kickstarter in particular, there are other crowdfunding platforms, but Kickstarter in particular is all about projects and mostly creative projects. And I felt that I really related to it. There's like a sort of like a designy undertone. Yeah, the people on there who are Kickstarter followers who go on the website every day looking for something cool. It seems like they're really into design, and I thought, hey, that's great for me. And then there's another more strategical thing about it, where Kickstarter, I think people who haven't done it before, they might glance at Kickstarter and think that it's about making money, and it's really not. You have to supply something in return for every single pledge.
Yes.
And in my particular case, I'm making a physical product. So all of the monies that I've made are going to be employed in actually making something for people, and then the rest is going to be invested back into my business, which is wonderful.
Yes.
So that's one thing. It's not about making money, but it really is about building an audience. That's another thing. Kickstarter can sort of help you. Not that Kickstarter is going to promote your campaign for you or anything like that, but you have an opportunity to create a big launch using their platform, and that's a good thing. It kind of packages your whole new idea in a really cool, professional way.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's one of the big benefits of doing a Kickstarter is you can get your brand out there in an interactive way as well. Like it's something that people can they can feel invested in your business because they are actually investing in your business. Sure, it's a small amount, but that helps. I think it helps to build a connection with your community that you can't quite get in other ways.
Yeah, it's true. The way that they've done it is brilliant.
And it can bring in a lot of new people, obviously, as well. I've actually done
Yep.
a similar thing. In Australia, we have something called Pozible, because we can't.
Oh.
At the time, we couldn't do Kickstarter. I don't know if we can now, but so it's like the Australian version. And a couple of years ago, when I was running Bespoke magazine, I actually did a fundraiser for a calendar. So I created a calendar with the artwork that had been in the magazine to that point, and I decided to run a Pozible because, it was also for me, the reason I did it was I wasn't sure if the interest was there for this product.
Yeah.
And it was a discrete product, it was one particular thing. And so I thought, well, if I run a Pozible campaign and I raise the funds, I'll make it happen because I'll have the money already to pay for the printing and all that sort of stuff. But if it doesn't get funded, then, well, that's just the way it is, and the interest wasn't there. So it's also a way of creating something while mitigating your risk as a small business person. You don't have to outlay thousands of dollars to do something that you're not sure is going to work. It's kind of the other way around. You create this project, and I think it also helps that by having to do a Pozible or a Kickstarter or something like that, you have to get really clear on what your goal is, and you put a timeline on it and all those sorts of things, which it can be easy for those things to fall by the wayside when you're just working on it yourself, I think.
You're so right. Yeah, you're so right. It's a good opportunity to test an idea. I forgot about that one. Because I'm not testing my idea, I'm like in the thick of it. But yes. I remember Seth Godin was talking about using Kickstarter as a way to test your business idea. He almost thinks of it as a business model. Yeah. Like Kickstarter is a little part of your business model for the purpose of testing.
Yeah, and I think that's a really, for anyone listening who is a maker or a designer and you have an idea of it has to be something discrete. It has to be like a project or a product line or something like that. And you really have to kind of give a good reason for why you're doing it that way rather than just creating it. But yeah, it can be a really, really powerful way of testing out a product, and also, earning the money up front to actually put something into production. And that's kind of what you're doing, isn't it? That was part of your goal. Can you just share exactly what you're trying to achieve with your Kickstarter?
Yeah, no problem. Well, I initially thought that I would be that I would start back on my own, and I would work with a manufacturer in the Stoke-on-Trent area. Stoke-on-Trent is also called the Potteries. It's the home of the traditional. It's a famous area for ceramics production. Germany has Selb, France has Limoges. These are areas where the Industrial Revolution took hold really strongly in terms of ceramics. So there is some industry left. From that, there used to be thousands of small potteries where you could get something made. There are a few big companies left, and there's like a handful of small, usually family-run companies where somebody like me, a designer maker, can go in and say, hey, this is my idea. I need 100 of these. Can you make them? I thought I'd be able to do that, and I kind of knew some of the manufacturers, but anyone who's tried it will know how hard it is to actually get your foot in the door with the manufacturer. It's so hard, mostly because they're either at capacity, meaning they can't take you on because they already have other clients that they're working for, and they just don't have enough space on their production line to fit in your designs. A lot of times, designers approach them with things that are too weird. For example, I wanted to have these retro glazes with speckles, and I wanted to hark back to the 70s, and nobody will do that here because it contaminates your whole production line. Right. Most people, with ceramics, most companies prefer to make things in white because if they start dabbling with other colors, there's a possibility of contaminating the glaze that's in another area. Ceramics is like a science. It's very finicky, Just one little drop of the wrong chemical in the wrong bucket can ruin a whole batch of products, and it's devastating. So, and then the third reason is that sometimes you can't place a big enough order. I don't have very much money. So, I mean, I couldn't go and say, yeah, here's thousands of pounds to make thousands of pieces. I couldn't afford it. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to make it myself. Like, I was just determined. I was desperate to do it. I was like, this idea is not going to die. I'm going to make something of this. So, and because I have some of those skills already, like in my hands, I know how to make a mold. I know how to carve a model. I know how to make a plaster mold so that I can pour clay into that and repeat that shape. I do it in a very sort of, I have to say, just like a sort of like a studenty way. You can't compare what I'm doing, which is pretty skilled, to what a person in the ceramics industry who's trained since they were like 14 or something to do this. It's extremely skilled. It's extremely skilled work. So I can do it in a bit of a, I can do it. So I started making my own pieces. And I do love ceramics making, but creating a production line is not fun all the time for many reasons. So I just started doing it myself for that reason. Is that what you asked? Sorry, I got sidetracked.
I asked originally what your goal for the Kickstarter was. Like, what were you actually trying to achieve with the Kickstarter? So,
oh, right. Okay. Yeah. So because I was making everything myself, it's there's only so much I can do in my little studio, and there's only so much one person can do. So I can make like 50 pieces in each batch. And people really started, I mean, it happened in stops and starts, When I was making stuff, I couldn't be online promoting. I only sell direct, don't sell to stores. So when I started to promote, people bought stuff. And I was like, wow,
it's super cute.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. And but it became clear after, years that I was working all the time and I wasn't recouping money from all those hours, which happens to many, many craftspeople and artisans. So I thought, look, this is a commercial product. It needs to be made in a commercial manner. It's not art. I'm not making art. I could have decided to do that. Nothing would have been wrong with that. That would have been great. But my idea didn't fall into that realm. I saw it more as design. So after making things for a few years, I've kind of met all the manufacturers. A lot of them have said no to me many times, so they know me. And then I finally found a company that I thought I could work with, and they're amazing. And they're really reliable. They have many clients. And they were interested in taking my designs on as well. And a Kickstarter seemed like the perfect opportunity to not only sort of make the funds so that I can pay a larger manufacturer, but there's also but to sort of promote a big launch as well. Yeah,
so, it's a great thing to do to get the energy and excitement going about your product, definitely. And
it's like starting. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, you go ahead.
Oh no, I was just going to say it's like you said before. If you don't have a deadline, it could never happen. So doing the Kickstarter is like starting with a clean slate. Like, okay, I was doing that before, and when the Kickstarter launches, I'll be doing something new. I'll be working with the manufacturer.
Yeah. That's really exciting. It just reminded me, those of you listening, the Kickstarter might have finished, but I'm assuming the page and the video and stuff will still be up there. So definitely go check that out. It's very cool. It shows Camilla in her studio, and it shows her in the factory that she's going to be working with, and how the whole process it's going to be happening. So I really enjoyed watching that. It was really, really, really well done too. Did you get like a production team to help you make that?
Oh my God, I'm so lucky. I have a friend who is now working with me, and he just so happens to have these skills. So he's my video assistant moving forward. We're going to do lots more videos together.
Awesome.
And he was just at the right time in his. He just graduated from uni, so this is like a really fun job for him too.
Friends are the best, aren't they? Gosh, they can save your life so many times. Yeah, the video is amazing. It's like proper quality, high level quality. So very, very awesome. Okay, so let's talk about the actual Kickstarter process. So we've talked about what was your actual monetary goal that you were setting.
Yes, it was
and how did you come to that amount as well?
Yeah, this is something that I didn't tell you about when I was talking about why I wanted to do Kickstarter, because it's so confusing. There's so much to it. But in addition to getting your pieces actually made, like say in my case, like 500 storage jars, there's also a sort of tooling cost where I was doing all the tooling, meaning carving all the master models to make my prototypes, and then making all of the molds. These are the sort of pieces that you need to reproduce your shapes over and over. I was making those myself, but I can't give that to a factory, especially this factory that makes bone china. They need molds that are so, like the seams are so tight that you can't put a piece of paper through them.
Right.
I can't do that because I'm not a master mold maker. And that costs a lot of money. That's the most expensive part of ceramic production, getting your master tooling made. These are the pieces that are going to be stored and last forever so that you can keep on making using those sort of master molds and models. So I needed money for that, for my 3 storage jars, which I was already making. So I needed funds for the tooling, meaning the master models and the molds, and then for the actual casts or the actual pieces, like 500 storage jars or something. So I knew that £7,000 would cover that. I've already spoken to manufacturers many times, and it's not complex, but most people won't realize, because I'm talking about, in the video when I talk about a factory making my things, they must think that factory does everything. They don't. That factory only does the casts. They only actually produce the ceramics. A different company makes the molds, and a different company makes the models. So, yeah. And when I say company, it's almost they're like individuals. They're like experts who kind of freelance in terms of the molds and the models. I talk to like a guy, and he comes to my studio, and he's amazing. But he works out of a small building, and it's him and another guy. So it's all very, very small.
I just want to interject here, because this is something that people might not think about when they think about going beyond themselves. So, when you're a small maker, you do everything yourself. And then the idea of outsourcing or bringing other people in to work on your stuff is kind of daunting or terrifying, or you feel like you're somehow betraying the handmadeness of it by doing that. But in your case, I think it's a really amazing example of what you're actually doing is you're actually expanding beyond yourself and helping keep other skilled crafts people in work. These people are not, they're not machines. They're people who've built up these amazing skills over decades, possibly. And their livelihood is at risk because of all the cheap imports that are coming in from China and stuff like that. And I think that's a really important thing for people to think about when they are thinking about outsourcing the making of whatever it is they make. By actually employing local people to help you, you're kind of helping keep handmade alive and helping those skilled craftspeople keep their livelihood going as well.
Yes, I agree. And because I've kind of been seeping in the Stoke-on-Trent history for so long, I know that that's the case. I do understand people kind of feel maybe that they're selling out if they're not making their own ideas with their own hands, if they come from a craft background. And that's just, I totally don't believe that. I think it's kind of like a sort of a social conditioning that we go through, especially if we go to art school, which I was in that mode as well. Like marketing was a dirty word, like those marketing people, and it's just tribes.
Yes.
And I think if you want to be an artist, be an artist. That's great, but charge enough. Charge, charge like it's art, because otherwise it's you don't. It's not. There's no honor in treating yourself like a slave.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I think you hit the nail really on the head there. That if you're going to go down the art path, you have to go down the art path, and you have to charge huge amounts of money for your pieces, and you have to get them in galleries, and you have to do that work. But if you want to be a designer, then you have that more of a scope, I think, to make more stuff and expand your business in a way that you can't when you're an artist and you have to make everything yourself.
Yeah, they're two different. They're two different models, I guess.
Yeah, and I think some people mistake that. They think that they see themselves as an artist, but then they're trying to build a business like a designer, or a small craft business, and they're trying to still work as an artist and make these one-of-a-kind intricate pieces and then selling them for $50 or whatever, and it's just not viable.
No, it's not.
I mean,
it's painful.
Yeah,
it's painful. When you're, it's painful when you're in it. Maybe not if you don't. I've kind of made a bit of a distinction. Like there are some people who don't. You'd never know if you didn't need to make the money to pay your rent. If you were just doing it, I don't want to say the H word, hobby, because that's horrible. Nobody wants to think of their art as a hobby.
No.
But if you're not forced to recoup the money from your creations to pay rent and things like that, maybe you're living at home or you have a spouse, you don't reach to that point where you start to see the massive gap, the terrifying gap, where you're looking at what you're making from your work and it doesn't match up. The math for the hours that you're putting in and the money that you're getting back doesn't match up. And if you're counting on making a business of that, you're kind of you're forced to rethink the whole matter, and that's what happened to me. And it's probably not a bad thing to go through that, because it pushes you to get some proper business skills. Yeah,
and I think, obviously that's a huge issue in kind of the handmade craft communities, that people are come from a craft or art or design background and don't have the business skills, and so they struggle for so long or give up because they just can't see a way through that maze, how to make things profitable basically, and how to actually be able to make a living off of them, and that it takes a long time as well. You can't kind of game the system or rush things. You just have to be patient and really dedicated to it in order to make it happen. So let's come back to your project. So we've talked about, you had that £7,000 goal to make those master molds, to make the master models, to actually start working with the factories. How's it going?
It's going well. I'm very confident in the manufacturing process, because I'm here. I'm right next to it. I can walk over to these factories and people and just talk to them. And I understand the process really well. So I've already started on the production for So it's already begun, because the campaign's almost over, and I can calculate how many things I'm going to need to make. So,
are you willing to share that number with us? Because I imagine it's pretty terrifying.
Oh, I actually don't. Well, I have like 500 and something actual pledges, and within that, many of the pledges are for multiple storage jars.
Wow.
So it's probably going to be like 800 pieces, something like that. 800 actual units, yeah. There is a part that is difficult, that I'm a bit worried about. It's the customization part.
Right.
When I was, that's always a bit hard. And I thought it was just me, and then I have been, and when I was researching Kickstarter, my campaign was just about to go live, and I was referred to this Q&A, I think within the Kickstarter website, where successful Kickstarter folks were giving tips about what to do and what not to do. Mm-hmm. And one person's main tip was, don't do anything personalized. And I was like, whoopsie. I know why they're saying that. I know why they're saying that. I totally know why they're saying that, but I'm still going to do it.
Yep.
So that's going to require a lot of attention. It's going to require double checking and all this stuff. And I'm going to be working with other people. So I'm going to have to sort of step into the supervisor role. Yes. And that's very difficult for me. I'm not really good at telling people, well, I don't really like it like that. Can you do it like this instead? Or, oh, made a mistake there. So that's going to be a bit of, I'm going to be out of my comfort zone, but, I've got to do it.
Yes. Just an offside, because I was talking to my husband, Nick, about this yesterday. I showed him your Kickstarter, and he's like, oh, those are really cool. How do they do it, though? Like, he was wondering how you actually put the designs on the model. So how does that actually work? I'm curious.
Sure, no problem. All of the decals or the colorful bits that you see on the pieces, like the faces and the all the colorful bits are drawn in the computer in Illustrator by me, and then they get sent digitally to a screen printer. That's yet another part of the process. A different company does the printing of the decals. In my particular case, I'm using digital decals, which means that basically the decal sheets, they first appear as sheets. They're like printed as so they're printed on this very special paper, and it's a digital decal machine. So it's like a really expensive photocopier. There's a few companies in Stoke-on-Trent, like literally maybe like a handful, very few companies that actually do this. So I send them my artwork and they print it. So I get back these sheets, and then, it's a similar technique to when people are decorating model trains and things like that. They also use decal or transfers. You put your sheet into water, and the paper that was holding the actual decal falls away, and you're left with this, it's almost like a piece of tape, a very thin, transparent, squiggly, very delicate thing, and you put that onto the ceramic, and that is a skilled piece of the job in itself, because it's very, very finicky.
Yeah, so see how that would go horribly wrong, or could go horribly wrong.
Yes, yeah. If you put it the wrong way on and it gets crinkled, it's like ruined. It's ripped. So there's a job within ceramics. It's called decorating, and that's the act of putting on these pieces. And if you go into a factory and watch people doing it, it's amazing. It's amazing. What takes me 2 days, a decal professional can do in 4 hours.
Wow.
Yeah.
And this is why we have the professionals.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Okay. Well, that's, yeah. Oh, I was wondering too, because I'm like, are they painted? Like, how is it? Like, I've done a ceramics course myself, so I know it's not like baked on there sort of thing. So I was curious about that. That's cool.
Yeah, it does get fired later. You have to put them in so that the decals, stay on the glaze forever. It's just like, it's the same thing that's on your ceramics at home. If you have any commercial ceramics that has like a drawing or like a colorful thing on it that's not hand painted, those are ceramic decals. It's the same thing.
Okay, cool. All right. So you've raised far more money than I think you aimed for, which is awesome. And it's a great sign that people are really interested in what you're doing, I think, which must be really heartening to you. So so we've got, your Kickstarter, it's about to finish. what are the next steps once the Kickstarter is done? Like, what are your next goals?
Yeah, well, immediately after it's the manufacturing, getting these pieces delivered to people, made and then delivered to people is the priority. That's going to take up, that's going to be intense. That's going to be a lot of time. But in conjunction to that, in terms of my business, I'm really wanting to, everything I've done so far has been very organic and unplanned in terms of how I actually sell my work. I've just been coming up with ideas like, oh, look, for example, it's Valentine's Day, so I'm going to do a character with a heart on it. And I do this like weeks before Valentine's Day. Like, that's not very good.
Yeah.
And then I start posting things out, and it's nice because I get an immediate, it's very live. I think people feel that what I'm doing is it's very authentic and it's live. I'm doing it in the moment now, and they react to it on social media, and I get to talk to them. That's really cool. But going forward, I need to plan a lot more. I need to plan my whole year, have all my designs done in advance, and also really master email marketing, and learn how to, put all of the things that I want to do into a planned story that I roll out later, because it's just not sustainable to be so sort of down to the wire. So I know that at least I know what I'm doing.
Yes.
Is good because it brings in people and I guess attention online, and I actually make sales, which is great. But I need to create a system for it, and I am not one of those analytical systems thinkers, so that's very, very, very hard for me.
I think it's very hard for a lot of people. I think a lot of us are kind of flying by the seat of our pants a lot of the time and just kind of following our muse, perhaps, rather than actually planning ahead of time, especially when it comes to the design. I mean, does the idea of having designed, kind of a whole year's worth of products up front, does that feel kind of terrifying and constraining, or does it feel liberating? I mean, how does that feel?
It doesn't feel constraining or terrifying, but I think because I've spent so much time doing things like making ceramics, packing boxes, running to the post office, I'm actually I feel like almost rusty in terms of design, even though it's like the easiest. I thought it was like the easiest part of the whole thing, and it does come naturally to me. All the ideas come very naturally, but when it comes to executing the idea and making it look exactly like what I want it to look like, that's very frustrating, and I'm not looking forward to that. But it's just part and parcel of it. It feels to me now like design is not it's not the most important thing, and it takes up, even though I'm saying it's going to be frustrating because I want it to be perfect, exactly the way I want it, it takes up such little time compared to everything else.
Yes. Yeah, and I think that's a really important lesson for especially people who are starting out to realize. I always tell my students, the first year or two of trying to run a business, something like 80% of your time is going to be spent on the business, not on reading and designing stuff. And I think they find that very confronting. But the fact is that if you actually want a viable business, you need to put so much time and energy into the marketing and the website and the social media and all, even just the packing and the shipping, and like there's all of those other elements other than the designing and making. And when you get busy, the designing, like for me, I know, like when I was just beginning, I had so much free time. I would just sit and make new things all the time. But now it's rare for me to just sit down and make new stuff. I'm so busy which I'm very thankful for. Don't get me wrong. It's awesome. But yeah, it's finding the time to actually do that design work can be a challenge when you have reached a certain level of success or, achievement in your business. And it's something I think we all need to work hard to carve out the time for. Otherwise it can all get a bit samey.
Yeah, and you feel like you which is inevitable. It feels like a job.
Yes.
But I think feeling that way sometimes is inevitable if you want to have your own business.
Yeah, I agree with you totally. And then I think for me, the remedy for that is I actually just get out of my head and look around me and go, well, if I wasn't doing this, what would I be doing?
Yeah.
I'd have a job for someone else, and I'd be going there and building their business or whatever, rather than working on my own. And so that kind of puts everything in perspective. I think that gratitude.
So true. I agree 100%.
So, I'd like to know what advice you have for other makers who are looking to run a Kickstarter to fund their business, and have you ever seen any other makers' Kickstarters that you would recommend people check out as examples of kind of what to do?
Well, I guess the first thing I would say that we haven't really touched upon, I was going to say it, but then I just started talking about something else, was the idea that you are much better off, and it's almost essential to already have an audience. One of the things that people, I think, trip on a little bit is when they think, oh, I'm going to do this crowdfunding platform. Kickstarter has a lot of people on there that are going to see my campaign, and that's not necessarily true. You have to promote it. It's just like any other website or any other platform. You've got to promote your WordPress website. Same thing with Kickstarter. They're not going to actually promote it for you. So I think I've read many times that the best campaigns are already sold before they actually are launched. So, and in order to do that, you might want to give yourself a lot of time. Don't think, oh, I'm going to do Kickstarter and I'm going to start my business tomorrow. Like, no, give yourself months, many months where you're making things and you're challenging yourself and you're showing them to people all the time, not family and friends, but people on the internet who don't know you, and getting their feedback.
Yes.
Just constantly creating it and making something that's original, that's remarkable, meaning it's going to be shared. People are going to go, wow, that's cool, you've got to see it.
That's a really good point. Both of those are really good points. So, when you were looking into doing a Kickstarter, did you do any research and kind of try to find other people who'd done similar things and learn from them?
Yeah, I had seen. I didn't do. I mean, I've been a fan of Kickstarter for so long, so I have a little Google document where I just cut and paste my favorite Kickstarter links, and I put them in there. And there's this one guy in particular who, I'll have to tell you later because I can't remember the name of it.
We'll put it in the show notes for the episode.
Oh, yeah, put it in the show notes. There's one that I can remember. The name of his business is called Flint and Tinder, and he came up with a men's underwear made in the USA. So all over the world, I think there's like a made local movement going on. Yes. And he presented his argument really well by saying, I went into all these stores, and he actually had photographs of stores like JCPenney and lots of different chains in the US, and he said not a single one has a US made underwear brand in it, and I want to start that. And it was just inspirational how he kind of told the stories so simply. It was a really short video, and in terms of getting behind a brand that's making something local, I was really inspired by that. And now he has he started other things. He makes jeans now and jackets, and then there was another company that I related to a lot more because it's a guy who's a self-proclaimed gamer geek, but he also loves Japan. He loves ancient Japanese art, and he mixed those two things. He's an illustrator, so he drew his favorite video game characters in an ancient Japanese style. And He even sent his illustrations to Japan to be woodblock printed by an artisan there. Yeah, so he makes these, and because I'm not a gamer, I don't even recognize what the characters are. You have to be a gamer to get it, you know? So it's so cool because it's so niche. Yeah. And that campaign is so popular. I think it made 6 figures. Like, it was crazy popular. Yeah. And but I did recognize the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles print because I used to love them. I was like, hey, that's the Ninja Turtle.
I love the Ninja Turtles too. That was great.
Yeah.
In the 80s. Oh. Awesome.
So I'll have to find that. And
yes, that would be great. And like I said, guys, we'll put that in the show notes so you can check it out as well as Camilla's Kickstarter also. Well, thank you so much for talking with us today, Camilla. It's been a pleasure to have you on the show.
Oh, thank you.
And I can't wait to hear how everything goes, so I'll be in touch and see how it's going down the line, definitely. Maybe we can even have you back on the show and you can teach us a few more lessons about the process.
Sure, that would be great. Thank you for having me.
I hope you enjoyed that, Thrivers. I love chatting to Camilla. It was really fascinating finding out about her story and her Kickstarter and everything like that. A Kickstarter is such a cool idea. It's such an awesome way to get your brand and your project out into the world. So if you haven't thought about doing one, maybe now you are. If you are, let me know about it. The show notes for this episode can be found over on the blog, createandthrive.com/CT podcast, and look for episode 9, my interview with Camilla Prada. Thanks so much for listening, Thrivers, and I will chat to you next week.